Hello, I'd like to welcome you, wherever you are, to this new DVD of Flame Teaching. And I'd like to begin by talking about two areas which we think are very, very important. One is, has all our healing been done at the cross? And I'd just like to concentrate on this. I think being a Christian is the most wonderful thing because there is always more. Just like the waves of the sea come in again and again and again. So when we're united with Jesus, there's always more healing, more freedom, and more rest. Now, as you think about that, you may be saying to yourself, but I thought it was all done at the cross. When I became a Christian, surely I came into God's kingdom and I had all my healing done at that point. Now, obviously, it's very true that when we became Christians, we became children of God and members of His heavenly kingdom. But I think as children, we have to learn to grow up. And this is where the process begins. And this is why I said there is always more. There are one or two Bible verses which I think are very useful here. One is 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18 says that we are being saved. We are being, and that verb has a sense of something continuous about it. And Romans chapter 12 verse 2, which of course was written for Christians, says that God should be transforming us by the renewing of our mind. And again, that verb transforming has a sense of something which is continuous. And 2 Corinthians chapter 3:18, we are being transformed into the image of His likeness. There's a lovely verse in the Message translation in Matthew chapter 3, where John the Baptist says that the real work is going to begin when Jesus begins His ministry. He is going to ignite a fire in each one of us. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And then he goes on to say, we will be changed from the inside out. And maybe that sounds a bit scary, but this is the sort of deep transforming work that I think Jesus begins in each one of us when we come to the cross, and which will only be perfected when in each one of us the final enemy, death, has been overcome. If we continue with the analogy of the sea, I have here two stones taken from the beach near us. One stone I took from the cliff. It had just fallen out of the cliff, and as you can probably see, it's quite hard and jagged with no smooth edges. The other stone I took from way down the beach, and you'll see how the waves have molded this and shaped it and softened it. And I believe this illustrates very well the process which begins when we come to the cross. We're like the hard, jagged stone. And as we go through our lives, Jesus is able to shape us and mold us and transform us. The work that Jesus wants to do in us, transforming from the inside out, is the work of changing us in body and soul and spirit. Now, the body is obvious, that's the bit we can see, the flesh and the bone and so on. The soul consists of the mind and the will and the emotions. And we're told in 1 Thessalonians 5:23 that we are body, soul and spirit. The spirit, the last bit, is the seat of intuition, conscience, and it's also the part of us that communicates with God, and God wants to heal us in body and soul and spirit. Now, about 1 month ago, I was trying to tidy up the garden, and I came down and I cut all all the old and the new leaves off these ferns right down to the bottom. And I didn't bother to dig up the roots. Now they loved it, and you can see how they've grown back in abundance. And this happens when we just pray into what is obvious without really trying to get to the root. The problems often get actually worse. And what we need to do is to try to get to the root of the problem. And then once you've got the roots out, then with God's grace, the whole problem is going to be resolved.